Hey everybody, welcome to the Chasing Freedom podcast with Noah and Jeff.
In this show, we're going to dive deep into flips, wholesales, holding rentals, and creatively structuring deals,
so that we can show you how you can achieve that lifestyle of freedom that you desire.
Hey guys, thanks for joining our show today. Today, I'm super excited. We have Brody Fausett with us. Brody actually went to the same school as me for college, Southern Utah University. And I've been following Brody for quite some time, even before I got into real estate. And he's one of my really early inspirations. I reached out to him like back in, 2016 or 2017. I said, dude, how are you doing what you're doing? Like, where can I get information on real estate? He directed me over to Bigger Pockets. And that was kind of the start of my journey. So it's really cool to have Brody on the show with me today. I'm super excited for you guys to learn from him. He gives a lot of value. If you get a chance at the end of the show, we'll have some contact resources of how to get a hold of Brody, how to follow him on Instagram and stuff like that. And his Instagram is full of value. I learn stuff from you weekly still to this day. So I'm super excited for the guests to be able to hear from you. Guys, Brody is in the top 1% of income earners. No, sorry. He's in the 1% of the 1% of income earners for people under 30. So you guys are going to get a ton of value. If you have your notebooks, if you have something to write down the notes from this show. If you're driving, like pull over or listen to this show later when you actually have time to fully commit to listen to the information Brody's going to share with you today. We're super excited.
Hey, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely,
I'm
man.
stoked to be here. It's been fun watching you guys as well. I mean, social media is great, right? It's how we keep up with each other, but it's been exciting just watching you make big moves, and it's definitely inspiring to me as well. So happy to be here.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for joining on. And one thing I was going to tell you too, and this is something I've kept secret, but like, I want to be as good as you are so badly. So like, I secretly compete with you, and it's kind of fun to just like tell you that now. But like, I like try to pay attention to like, oh, what's Brody doing? Like, okay, how can I do that? Or like, how many units does Brody own? How do I beat that by the time I'm his age? So that's something you probably never knew about me. But yeah, I secretly compete with you all the time because I think that you're an awesome
Love
dude.
it.
So.
Which is good, right? Because we get in our little local market, we're like, oh, we're big fish in our local market. We just want to compete with the people here. So now we're like, no, we got to challenge ourselves. We got to think outside that box. Like, who can we compete with that are doing way bigger things than we're doing now? So you're one of those guys we look at. We're like, oh, we got to compete with Brody and try and keep up, right? We don't want to keep up with the people in our little market. We want to go with the big fish and try and keep up with those guys. So it's cool that you're inspiring people like that, man. That's rad.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. It's cool that you are inspired by that. I think it's so easy to get complacent, right? Exactly what you said. And I'm good. I'm happy. I got everything taken care of. I don't need any more. And so I think that's one of the, just in general, like a life principle is, I think one of the most overly quoted quotes, but you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Yep. And the problem is that most of our friends are average, and we don't intentionally seek to put ourselves in a different circle that's going to up our average. And so therefore we just kind of stay stagnant where we're at. So props to you guys for looking outside of that circle and how can you get pushed to get bigger and better. So I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
You actually brought up a good point. That's something I want to pick your brain on. So I would say early off starting in real estate, that's a hard thing to do. Is like you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, but the people above you don't necessarily want to spend time with you, or they're not just going to give away their time freely. So how would you recommend someone that wants to get into real estate or whatever it is? Maybe they want to become, a cryptocurrency investor. How do you get around those high level players to where you're the weakest link in the 5 people you're around instead of being you're elevated above the 5 people you're around?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great question. And definitely have been there, right? I mean, I'm there right now because we're constantly, if you want to level up, you constantly have to look for those new circles. I feel like I can answer it 2 ways. One is kind of along the lines of like, how do you find a mentor? How do you get in the circle? How do you approach that situation to where you're not just, hey, can I come hang out with you guys, right? Can I take you to lunch? Can I buy you coffee or whatever? Like most people reach out and say, and it doesn't really go anywhere. So there's that angle of how to approach that situation. And then there's the other angle of like what that means to get in that circle. And one of the biggest things that's helped me, because it is difficult to find those people and why are they going to want to spend time with me because I'm not on their level, or what value do I have to give? And so one thing that I've always tried to do is one way, and it's the easiest way to level up your circle, is it doesn't just have to be people you physically hang out with, and it's not necessarily a two-way relationship. So what I mean by that is like podcasts, books. Like for me, if I can consume, right, a bunch of content from the richest person in the world, and I spend my time reading their books, and I spend a lot of my time listening to their podcasts, like eventually they've just made their way into my circle because I put them in there, right? It might not be them physically, but I've consumed enough of their content that I start to think the way that they think. I start to, answer problems and solve problems, answer questions the way that they would do it, just naturally, because I've spent so much time around them and diving into their content. So I think that's the most inexpensive way to do something like that, right? That people do not take advantage of. And it's free information a lot of times, right? With all the podcasts and everything out there. Like if you just consume so much content, you start to think like somebody thinks, which I think is really, really powerful.
Yeah, 100%. That's funny because that's like essentially what motivated me to get started, right? Was like seeing other guys be successful with rentals. And like I didn't have anyone in my personal network, but I had people in my social network. Yeah. And your social network influences you if that's the content you're choosing to consume. So I think that's great advice. The other thing I was going to ask you on, you said you owned five different businesses or streams of income at the moment.
Yeah.
Can you break those down for us, what those are, how you got into them, kind of where they're at and where you want them to go?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because I've always, I guess, considered myself an entrepreneur, and it's something about building something. Like I've always, we were talking earlier off camera just about manual labor and construction and stuff like that. And I've always loved that. Like growing up, I loved to build forts. I loved to use my hands to build things. Like I enjoyed ceramics class, right, in high school. And just this idea of if I could picture something in my mind and then I could make it become a reality, there's something that's just so fun and fulfilling about that. And so like building's part of that. Like, I think that's why I'm so into business now and so into like real estate now. And it's funny because part of like my real estate journey is, okay, I envision something in my mind of I want, a remodel to look like this, or I want, this amount of passive income because it's going to create this type of a lifestyle. And once I imagine it and picture it in my mind, then I go build it and it's fulfilling. And so I think that business is the exact same way. So my rental business, right, I consider that a business where I have a portfolio of rentals. I collect passive income, which is like my main goal, right? I invest for cash flow. I still flip houses and stuff like that. But main purpose of me investing in real estate is to make the money that when I wake up in the morning, my bank account grows. Mm-hmm. I have a real estate investing coaching business where I teach people how to invest in real estate. I have a mastermind group with that. We do a lot of like one-on-one coaching, as well as just have different programs that help people go from zero experience to how do I start making passive income, and then also go from, hey, I have a few rentals, but I want to really scale my business. And so we work on that. I'm still involved in door-to-door sales. I've worked for a door-to-door sales company for the last 8 years. Now it's more of a hands-off management type role. I'm not out there actually knocking as many doors as I have in the past, but I enjoy that part of the business, the leadership development, the helping people grow. And I've learned so much over the years going door to door, facing rejection, overcoming, different objections, and eventually like closing a deal. And obviously that relates to real estate and just life in general. Yeah. So I'm still involved in that. I have a few sales teams. One's just all doing solar, one's all doing smart home. That are out in Texas. So I'll go visit them, once or twice a month. Nice. Involved in that. And then my wife has a business that she started probably about three or so years ago that she's crushing. She's doing awesome with it. It's taken off. It's called Mama Lay. She has a fitness app that she just launched in January. We've been working on that for the last year and a half with some developers overseas, and so that's gone really well. She has a supplement line. It's pretty cool. We have a bunch of protein that just barely finished. It's like it's fun because it's been a whole process, right? The last 6-7 months they've sent us samples. We're like, oh, it doesn't taste very good. Let's change this, but we want to keep it natural ingredients. And so that's fun. Like her protein's like launching to the public in the next, the mid next month. I think June 15th is like the launch date of that. Cool. So yeah, so a lot of different things, like hands in different pots. I'll invest a little bit in these different businesses as well. But ultimately for me, it's anything that, like, growth is fulfilling, right? Anytime we're growing, it's fulfilling. There's a difference, I think, from happiness or from, like momentary pleasure and like true fulfillment. And for me, I've just found whenever I'm maximizing my potential and growing as a human being, growing in business, it's fulfilling. So like that becomes addicting. And so for me, the whole thing is, okay, within all my businesses, everything I have going on, how does it grow and how does it fulfill me? And if it doesn't kind of fit that mold, then I try and either delegate it or just kind of cut it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's super important. That's something that we're kind of growing through the pains of right now is everything that's not an income producing activity, delegating it to someone else and stopping doing it. But sometimes it's really hard because it's like you think you're good at something or you enjoy doing something that isn't something that's important to you growing that business. You don't want to stop doing it, or you justify why it's okay that you're doing that or why someone else can't do it as good as you can do it. And
Absolutely.
I think separating that out is difficult.
It's tough, man. It's really tough. I just got finished reading a book. It's called Who Not How. Phenomenal book. Highly suggest reading it. But it's crazy because naturally we always ask the question when something comes up that needs to get done. How do I do this? Mm-hmm. How can I do this? How can I do this? Right? Or what we should be asking is who can do this for me or who can help me do this? And anyhow, it was a huge, like, I try and take one principle every year of something that like has been a breakthrough or like a paradigm shift for me.
Yeah.
Last year it was not surrounding myself with battery drainers, right? Mm-hmm. I want to surround myself with battery chargers. It doesn't matter if that relationship was making me a lot of money, like I would cut it off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not worth it. I want battery chargers. And this year, like, that's probably the number one thing is who, not how. And I look back and I'm like, how do I function? How do I get the most done? And it comes down to, I have to surround myself with the right people. Yeah. And anytime I've done that, like I progress so much further versus exactly what you said. We get in this rut of like, okay, I got to do this, or I can do a better job of it. And anytime something can be done 80% as well as we can do it ourselves, then it needs to be delegated. Yeah. Simple.
Yeah. I follow a guy and he's in the Christian world. His name is Craig Rochelle, and he leads a leadership podcast. And he's way lower than the 80%. He's like, dude, if somebody's at like 60% of me, I'm throwing it to them. They'll build themselves up to 80, and then I don't have to worry about doing that anymore. So the power of delegation is huge, man. I feel like that's the real ceiling that people put on themselves, right? Like right now we're going through this massive growth stage where like we've created really high paying jobs for ourselves, which isn't the goal. The goal is to build a business that can run without us. And to do that, it's that next step of, okay, now we got to start delegating out. Now we got to start trusting people to do what we've been good at. And it's not easy, but it's a necessary step. So that's crucial that I think you bring that up. So, hey, so for a lot of our listeners are going to be pretty new into real estate, or kind of not, they're not going to be 1% of 1% under the age of 30. So what was like the first step that you took to kind of get going in business or get going in real estate? Like right now we're like a 10,000 foot view, right? Like you got these 5 businesses, you're running really successfully. What would you say like your first 60 to 90 days look like when you really started out on this journey, and what steps would you tell people to take to start dialing in a business or following that path for real estate success?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a few different types of people, right? One of them being someone who's naturally motivated and naturally like wants to go and succeed in life and is looking for the next level. And I mean, that's easy for those people, right? Because they already kind of are driven and they'll find a way to get it done. Yeah. They just will. And I feel like I was maybe more that type of a person, maybe the same as you guys. I don't know. But then there's another type of person who has that potential. I think everyone has that potential within them, but like has that desire, but they don't exactly know what to do with it or know where to go. And they need a little bit of help from a leader who's going to help them with their vision, and inspire them to go and obtain that vision. So I think that's really the first step, is setting like a 3 to 5 year plan. I think that the biggest problem with society is we live life by default rather than by design. So we just live each day as it comes and just take each day as it comes. And that's not good enough to get you to where you want to go. It's not
passively living life.
No, absolutely not. It's not fun. It's not growing. I think that the reason we're on this earth is to maximize our potential. Like I personally don't believe that like God sent us down here and said, hey, go live average, go be like everybody else. Right. And that's why there's so much fulfillment and joy that comes from growing and maximizing your potential. So with that being said, I think you have to get intentional. Hey, what type of a life do I want to live in the next 3 to 5 years? And I think we go through, maybe college and we graduate, or maybe we see our parents and see other people, and we just assume that if we just keep living life day by day, we're eventually going to live our dream life and get what we want. Well, that's not the case. And I think it takes some people longer to figure that out, unfortunately. And sometimes we learn that the hard way. But it's a lot easier to stop and think, hey, what type of life do I want to live? What time do I want to wake up? What do I want to do for a career, right? How long do I want to work every day? How many kids do I want? What type of a family life do I want? What type of impact do I want to have? What type of, body do I want to have? How do I want to treat my body? All these things. And you write them down. There's an awesome book. It's called The Vivid Vision. I'm not sure if you guys have read it before. Phenomenal, super easy read, 150 pages. But what it does, it has you go through and you come up with, it's like a 6-page like vision basically. But what's so important about it is it allows you to stop, to be intentional, to think like, hey, this is what I want to go and accomplish. And then you can reverse engineer that, and what you need to go do in the present. So that would be my number one piece of advice. If you don't know where you're going, any path's going to get you there. Right. And basically what that means is if you have no plan, then it doesn't really matter what you accomplish or what you don't accomplish. You will have succeeded in accomplishing your plan. Yeah. Right. Versus let's get intentional. Let's get crystal clear. I think the more clear you can get about what you want out of life, the higher chances are of actually going out and getting that. And the universe, the world, God, call it what it may, like, it gives you what you ask for,
Yeah.
That's good.
So you're basically, to break that down, you're saying start with the end in mind. What is it that you ultimately want? So, someone says, okay, well, I want to replace my job with passive income. Okay, you make $60,000 a year. You want $60,000 in passive income. Now you work it backwards. You say, how much passive income can I get per property? Okay, so therefore, how many properties do I need? And now, if with your 5-year plan, within 5 years, you can quit your corporate job and your passive income will be the exact same as what you were making at your job, which means now you're free, if that's what you're chasing. Right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. One exercise I have everybody do that goes through my course is, we call it like your freedom number. It's like, what's your freedom number, which is basically the point where, you don't have to work. You have enough passive income that pays for your living expenses and for, like plus whatever you need to survive on, right? Yeah. Not just like mortgage and stuff, but like your food. And then there's a number above that where you're like truly free, right? Which is like the FU type money, right? Where you can't ever get rid of it. But like, always start out with that freedom number. What's your freedom number? And then exactly what you said, you reverse engineer that and you start with that, and I usually have people create like a 5-year plan, like, what's it going to take year by year to actually get there? And we track it and we measure it to actually live intentionally and design it and go live life by design versus just by default.
Yeah. What was your freedom number when you started, and has it changed compared to where you're at now?
Yeah, I think so, because my lifestyle has increased, right? So like, it takes more to sustain my life now than it did before. But I think the important thing is my lifestyle didn't increase until I hit those freedom numbers, and then I increased the lifestyle. Because if not, it ends up being like this, we're chasing something that we're never, ever going to catch, right? Build passive income, but then living expenses increase, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So starting out, I got into real estate as a college student, house hacking. Noah, you and I were just talking about that. But so yeah, for me, like as a college student, I didn't have a ton of expenses. You know, I tried to pay for school each semester, not take out any student loans. And so it really didn't take a whole lot for me to live and survive. And then getting married, like my expenses went up a little bit more, right? Because I know how to make sure and provide for my family.
Yeah.
And so what I started out with trying to achieve and attain, I think I just Googled it one day. What's the average income? First I did it in my county, which I think was like 35 grand. It wasn't anything special at all. And then nationwide, it was a little bit more. Maybe it was like 50 grand. It's probably gone up since then, right? With inflation and stuff like that. But I started out with those numbers, and I'm like, as soon as I hit this, like, this is great. I can live off this. I have this true freedom because essentially I'm making the same amount of money as the average American, but I'm doing that passively.
Yeah. It's crazy. What I love about this is when you work backwards, it makes it really obtainable, right? So like we talked to a lot of people who are like, oh, how'd you guys' business grow up or blow up, or how did you get involved in real estate? And you're like, dude, we just worked it backwards. We listened to people who are smarter than us, and we worked it backwards, and we realized what steps do we need to take. And Noah and I were talking about this on our last podcast, is we're not really interested, like, to us, we don't judge ourselves, or we're trying not to like judge ourselves by like, okay, this week did we hit like 20,000? We're like, okay, to get to 20,000, these are the amount of calls we needed to make. This is the amount of offers we need to make. Did we hit those? Okay, if we hit those, then the 20,000 should be a byproduct. It shouldn't even be something that we really have to look at and go, oh, did we do the things, or did we make that 20,000? No, we did the steps that were necessary to make that. And I think it's that simple for pretty much whatever you want to do in life. Like, you listen to these high-level people, and they all have the same steps. You figure out where you want to go, and you boil it back to what action steps do you need to get. And if you follow those action steps, you will get there. It's not like not a guessing game. Like, every person who is highly successful in the real estate business, that's all I know is real estate. I know it like the back of my hand. Don't know anything else. Protein powder, never took anything. Like, not my jam, right? Like, I just do real estate. But every time I talk to somebody in real estate, it's always simple. They just followed a path that somebody else told them, like, hey, this is what I did. This is what everybody does. It's not rocket science, but still 90% of people, probably higher, will never do it. We have this hurdle in our society that like makes it so difficult just to follow simple steps. The thing I see is almost like there's this, and I don't know if it's like multi-level marketing created this or whatever, but there's just this distrust in like the path of progress now. Right, so you're like, hey, this is what I did to be successful. This is what Brody did to be successful. This is what Noah did. And they're all very similar, right? Like, we decided what we needed to do, and we decided to do it. But then you tell this to people, and there's like this form of skepticism of like, no, you're probably just trying to bait me into something. And it's just like, it stops so many people from doing it. I'm like, man, this is so simple. Like, it's not hard. Like, Elon Musk will tell you what he does. Jeff Bezos will tell you what he does. Why are we all not multi-billionaires? Because we're not willing to put that dedication and have that discipline and take all those steps. So I think that's one of the things, like, as we do this series, I think it'll be a common theme, because it's just a common theme amongst successful people. Is like, you really have to decide what action steps you need to take, and then simply just got to start taking action towards those things. So it's cool to see another high-level player have a similar thing, is, hey, figure out where you want to go, and then we'll boil it backwards. And it sounds like you kind of walk with your students for like a 5-year cycle. Like, hey, did you hit your numbers this month? Did you hit it this year? Walk us through what that looks like for you.
Yeah. I think, I love what you said. First off, I think that's phenomenal. I love the part about we get so focused on the result, right? Or the lag measure versus focusing in on the lead measure.
Yep.
And I love that concept, because we think about it. We don't do success, right? You don't do results.
Yeah.
That's just what happens.
Yep.
And so why we focus on something that we don't do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead, what we do is we do the process. We do the things we can control of. And I took a picture of this page of a book I was reading this morning. So I was going to post this quote on Instagram that I loved, but it goes along with what you just said. Let's see. It said, shift your thinking from focusing on what's next to what's now. And I love that. But to answer your question, so I think the biggest thing of like you set your plan, right? You set your 5-year plan, you reverse engineer it, you break it all the way down. Like we break it all the way down to like weekly. What do you do each week, each month, each quarter, each year, to be able to hit our yearly goals that are going to put us on track for our 5-year goal or our freedom number. And so the other part of that is accountability.
Yep.
Like you need to be held accountable, because it's so easy to get hyped in the moment, motivated in the moment. You know, I want to go invest in real estate. I want to go create this passive income. And then all of a sudden the real work comes into play and we get distracted. We can't see it through. So not only helping people, you know, set those weekly, monthly goals, but actually like helping hold them accountable to make sure they're actually moving the needle and focusing on the most important things.
Nice. That's rad.
And that's something that you do in your mastermind coaching group, right? Like you'll help hold those people accountable. You'll make sure that they're hitting their weekly action targets, and they're doing the you call it a lead measure.
Yep.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's powerful. Like I feel like that's it's super difficult when you're starting off to be like, who's going to hold you accountable? Who's going to make sure that you hit your 50 cold calls for the week? Because sometimes if you hit 40, you feel like that's good enough.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you know that you need to hit 5,000 to get 2 houses, and that was your goal was to buy 2 houses that year. Well, you're off by 10 every single week for a whole year.
Yeah.
You just missed your mark.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, it's part of it's knowing what to do, right, and helping people understand like, okay, this is what we need to do. This is, from my experience, what I would suggest is going to be the best thing for you to get you on track to hit your goals, right? Mm-hmm. And then from there, it's how do we make sure you actually do it?
I like it.
That's good.
Hey, I want to dive a little deeper into, I think it'd be really cool to look at your first deal, like whatever the first piece of real estate you bought, why you bought it, how much money did it make, what was the cash flow or the metrics you looked at, and then also to look at, one of the deals you're doing now. Selfishly, I want to hear more about the tiny home resort you're building, but if you choose to go into another deal, that's totally fine. Yeah. So,
no, absolutely, man. I love like sharing my story just because the way I invest in real estate, it's so clear that anybody else can do it because I don't use a ton of capital. I get high returns. I invest for passive income. And there's a lot of different strategies I use to go out and do that. But I think my first deal is a good example of that. Because I was a college student, I didn't know what real estate investing was. I didn't know, anything about it, if it was a good thing, bad thing. And it was kind of scary to be honest. It was really scary to be honest. The kind of story behind that is I was getting ready to go to college. So in Utah University, and my friends, a lot of them were going to the same school. And we couldn't find places to live. Like it was crazy. We were just looking around, trying to find a place to rent. We couldn't find anywhere to rent. And my mom, she's a real estate agent. She kind of did it on the side. Like she'd sell, I don't know, a couple houses a year. She just had her license. And she's like, why don't you buy a house? And for me, I'd never thought about this. I'm like, you only buy a house when you're married and you have kids and you have a job and a degree. And so it was just completely like, it didn't make sense to me. I didn't get it. I'm like, you can't just go, I don't even have a job, right? I didn't even have a job at the time because I was getting ready to move to go to school. And so I learned a lot more about it. And because this was my thought in the beginning, like, okay, houses are $150,000, $200,000. Like, I don't have that much money. How am I going to buy a house? Yeah. And that just shows you how much I didn't know about real estate, right? And so I learned more about it. Like, no, the bank loans you money. Well, why would the bank loan you money? Because there's something in it for them. What's in it for them? Will they collect interest, right? And so I learned a lot more about it. So she convinced me an idea of like buy a house and just rent it out to your friends. I'm like, okay, like let's learn more about that. Ended up picking up an awesome property. The story behind that is pretty cool. This older lady passed away. That part of it's not cool, but
he's like, just to clarify,
it was right next to college campus, like one house away. But the way we found it, we were just asking around. Hey, we're looking at buying a house. You know anybody? I asked a few people I know up there, and this one lady's like, yeah, this older lady that goes to my church. She just passed away. I don't know what her kids are wanting to do with the house. Like, can you give me their number? And you can imagine how that conversation was. It's like, hey, sorry, your mom or your grandma just died, but do you want to sell her house? So, we were able to get that house and moved into it, still not understanding the power of real estate, not knowing anything about it. It was a split level house. And so there was one kind of level in the basement. There were no windows. The carpet was probably made up of 50 or 100 different types of carpets cut in these like 1 by 1 squares, different textures, different lengths, different colors. And of course I lived in that room because that was the one I wouldn't be able to rent out for as much money. So since then we've actually cut windows into it and added 2 bedrooms in the basement and stuff. But at the time, what I was doing, I got a job, was working at Gold's Gym, just at the front desk, not making great money by any means. It just minimum wage. I remember I was so stoked if somebody came in and signed up. I got $5. I got a $5 bonus if someone signed up. So it was funny. There's the stuff that pops up on Facebook or whatever from 10 years ago, and it was like my post was, "Hey, if you want to get in shape this year, come in. I'll hook you up and get a membership at Gold's Gym." But I remember, like, if I could get one of those an hour, that was an extra $5 an hour. And now instead of making $7, I was making, $12 an hour or whatever. And so, but when it really clicked for me, I was living there. I was renting out the rooms to my friends. And at the end of the month, I'd get these checks that were coming in from my job, which was working at this gym. And I related that, as I was going to school, it felt like I was only working or going to school, in between like trying to live a college life, dating and do whatever else you do. And then also trying to work and go to school and do homework. That was my life. And so even though I was only working maybe, 4-hour shifts a day, which isn't that much, it felt like a ton. And so what would happen is the end of the month, I'd get these checks from my job. And then I'd also get this money that came in from all my friends paying me rent. And then I'd pay my mortgage. I'd pay my utilities, the expenses. I wouldn't have to pay any money for my rent. And there was money left over. And I was looking at both of these types of income, and they were about equal. Yeah. And I was like, what? This one's coming in and I'm doing nothing, legit doing nothing. And this over here, I feel like it's taking all my time, energy, everything, spending so much time doing it. And so that's when it was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And then it was from there, what if I did this again and again and again? And what would that look like? And what would that look like? And so that's really how it all got started for me.
Man, that's
really cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. It was just a natural progression.
Like I can just see it like sitting there looking at the checks side by side, and you're like, this sucked up all my time and this took nothing.
This not only took nothing, but I also lived in this house and still made this. Like you got add your like $200 room rent to that. Now you got, this is triple this, and this was nothing. Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand that I was scared. Like at the time, it was scary. It's funny now because like I buy houses all the time. I don't think twice. It's not scary, right? Because I know the numbers, it's experience. I get it, but at the time and in the moment, I'm like, dude, if my friends decide not to pay this month and I'm just stuck with this, like I don't even know if I can make enough money this month to even actually afford the mortgage on my own.
Yeah.
And so I just remember that fear, and you almost forget about it, because it's been so long now. But just going back to like, it's okay if it's scary, right? Just because it's scary doesn't mean it's bad. But it's wild thinking about that now, because just get so confident in the numbers and real estate in general.
Yeah. And that first step is scary. One, because it's your first time doing it. Two, you have very limited protection, right? Like if one of those roommates moved out, there goes 150, 200, 300, whatever you're charging for the room that now you're responsible for. But then as you grow your portfolio like that, we were just talking about this the other day too, that diminishes. Like we're really looking at buying like fourplexes out of state is kind of one of our target things that we're doing right now. And the reason is well, if one tenant moves out, we're still not like, maybe we're not making our cash flow that month, or making our cash flow goes down, but we're still protected, right? Like we still got those 3 other tenants in. Whereas if when you get started out, it is kind of a leap of faith, right? Because you're going to if you're buying one single family property to rent out, if your tenants do move out on that one property, you're in a pretty tough situation at that point. So that's why multifamily is so huge, just why house hacking is so huge. Renting out by room is another way you can protect yourself within an individual asset, right? We have a gal in our market who that's what she does is she buys just single family houses near the college and she rents out rooms. Because for her, that gives her the same protection that she would if she would have bought like a fourplex or a sixplex, right? Because it's individual renters in each room. So there's some strategic things that you can do to kind of protect yourself. But yeah, I do think on that first deal, it's scary. It's hard to take that jump, but then you see what can happen once you take that risk and you start to just build upon it. So
yeah,
cool.
Getting the first property is so important. And I think a lot of people look at it and they think that it has to be a home run.
Yeah.
Or like they might hear like some of your numbers and be like, oh, Brody cash flows $1,000 per door on one of his properties. I have to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not as important. It's important that you get started. You start building the real estate muscles. You start learning what a deal is. You start learning how to write the numbers, so that eventually you get to the point where Brody's at, where it's like you look at a house, it's not as scary anymore. You know your process. You know you have your defined metrics that you need to meet, and as long as that property meets those metrics, it's a good buy.
Yep.
So you pull the trigger. You know.
Nice.
But what did you rent each room out for?
Yeah, so I actually still have that house today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of changed over the years. I actually probably need to up rent. It's funny. I ran into one of my tenants, and I didn't know he was my tenant, but he was like, "Hey, thanks for making rent so affordable." And I'm like, "Oh shoot!"
You're like, "No, I'm not doing my job right."
So I was like, "You're welcome, of course."
You're like, "I'm gonna keep yours low, but don't tell anybody else." Okay, thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, it tells me it's about time to raise rent. But so I rent the single rooms because they're a mix. So some are single and some are shared.
Okay.
Which is another thing that's important. Like when I'm looking for a house and I'm going to use that strategy, like one of the things I'm thinking about is this room big enough to be a shared room? Because I'm going to get more money off a shared room. Yeah. So like right now, shared rooms go for $300 a room. So if you look at it that way, I'm getting $600, or sorry, I said room per person. So
wow.
I'm getting $600 out of that one room.
That's
right.
Crazy.
And then and then singles are $375.
Nice.
Wow,
and then do you do like co-ed living situations, or like if you're renting out per room to college students, are you doing all guys? Are you doing all girls? Do you have?
Yeah, I do all guys, all girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems smart.
Kind of what I've always done.
Yeah,
and then
no breakups, and then all of a sudden the shared tenant moved out. There's just one dude like, I can't pay the $600.
Yeah,
and then how do you structure that lease? You give them, is the lease term matched to the time those kids are in school, or is it a year-long lease? Is it a half year?
Yeah. So it depends on the school, but like it's nice. Like SU, for example, they have trimesters. So basically, it used to be, every 2 semesters, and then kids would go home for the summers. Now they have it just split into 3. So it makes it a lot easier just to do a 1-year lease. So you get the full year out of it, because some more people are doing the summer semesters now. But
nice.
So that's what I've transitioned over to. But yeah, before it was, so school would start, let's say school starts, I don't know when school starts, end of August, right? And then you have school getting out, May, beginning of May. So what a lot of people would do is they would just start the lease at the end of August and have it end at the beginning of May. I tried to eliminate as much of the summer people leaving and not being there as possible. So I just did August 15th to May 15th, and people would, that, hey, if you want to move in a couple weeks earlier before school starts, great. Like once school ends, you have a couple more weeks before your lease ends. So if you need time to get out, whatever. So I've done that. Then that only left me with 3 months in the summer that I really had to worry about. So some of the things that I've done there is I'll cut rent down a little bit just to keep it full, and because people are still working there. Not everyone's going home. People are still going to school. And then the other thing I would do in the beginning, I don't do it anymore just because it's so much work, but I would just Airbnb it. Yeah. So, and that would be great. Like I'd almost make more money doing that than what I would from the students. But now it's crazy. It just seems like a lot of people aren't really leaving and going home for like the summer semesters. So it used to be, it felt like you had to drop rent, down really low to keep it full. Now things just tend to stay full at the same price.
So can you give us a little like synopsis of this property? So how much did you collect in total rent if it was fully occupied? What's your mortgage and your expenses? And, do you pay a property manager or whatever? And then what's your actual take home on this first property that you bought?
Yeah, great question. So I think which is the power of house hacking, right? Because the way we're going to calculate a return is for me, I use cash on cash return for almost everything because I'm trying to leverage my cash the best way and build passive income at the same time, cash flow. So that's why house hacking is so important, because we can get away with a low down payment, right? And it's going to allow us we have to own or occupy it. It's less risk for the bank if we're going to be there, all those things. So as long as you want to own or occupy it for a minimum of at least a year, has to be your intent, then you can qualify for a lot of loans that are very low amount down. So for this house, I did a 3.5% FHA loan. I want to say the purchase price was like 160 or 165 or something on the house. So you do the math on that, like out of pocket. And my mom, it was great. My mom was a realtor, right? So she kicked back some of her commission, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But I want to say it was around like $5,000 or something.
Yeah.
I think like $3,500 is what I came up with. I worked construction that summer.
Nice.
And so I had barely enough to kind of cover my down payment. That's one of the reasons why it was so scary, because I'm like, dude, that's all my money. I don't have any more money. I don't have any reserves if they don't make the payment. But so based on that, you pulled out your calculator. What was it? $3,700, $3,500?
I was doing the math on what I thought your mortgage payment was going to be. I ended up at like $850 is what I thought the mortgage payment would be on.
Yeah,
$160.
So it was $1,080.
Uh-huh.
It was mortgage insurance, was taxes, everything kind of all in there. So $1,080. And then as far as what I was collecting, like right now, I think it brings in $2,700 or something like that a month.
Killer.
Yeah. And so it was great. So, I mean, that cash flows really well, like well over $1,000. I do cover utilities on that, where there is so many people. I just found it's easier for me to keep it in my name, not switching things back and forth. Plus it's not that expensive for utilities. Like averages out probably like $60 a month. Sometimes in the winter it might go up to like 120 or 130. So nothing crazy there. I'm trying to remember if you asked any other questions about it. So cash flow as well, probably like $1,200-$1,300 to be honest. And for sure it's an outlier. One thing I did do with the property, which is kind of cool, probably after I owned it for like 2 years, I did a cash out refinance on it. So like it kept my payment about the same. I think it's like $1,120 right now, $1,120. So it went up $40. But because it appraised for more, right, I was able to pull out a bunch of cash. So I think I left originally, I put in 3.5%. I left 25% of the equity in it, and then I pulled out another $25,000. Kept my payment the same, kept it rented out for the same. And I took that $25,000. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago, but I took that $25,000 and went and deployed it elsewhere and invested in another property with it.
So you essentially have no money in this property now, and it continues to pay you residual income.
For sure. Yeah, exactly.
I think real estate's the eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah, it really is.
It's crazy too, because I mean, I could go do it again. I think I owe like, I don't know, 160 probably on the house right now. It's probably worth, I don't know, $350 or $360. So in fact, it's probably something I should do, right? Go do the exact same thing, cash out refinance, right? And that's the part of real estate where what's the word? Recycle. We recycle our money.
Yeah.
That's when it's fun.
Keep turning it. So that was your first deal. Take us to one of your current deals that you're currently working on. So again, selfishly, I'd like to hear about the tiny resort. I know you've got other deals going on.
Tell us what you want to tell us, Brody. Don't let no influence you.
No, I love it. I mean, the tiny home stuff's fun for me because I've always been a big dreamer, right? That's just kind of the way that we were talking about it earlier. But I get motivated by things in the future and like designing it in my head and my mind, and then it drives me and gives me motivation to go like work hard in the present. And so for me, like tiny homes is something I've always wanted to do. Like I just think it's so cool. I think it's an experience. I think something about like that vibe and being there, plus you mix that with being in the mountains and you're away from people. So the name of the resort is the Unplugged Tiny Home Resort. And
nice.
I just love the concept of just like getting out, unplugging. You're living in a smaller space, more minimalistic, and people love that, right? A lot of times they'd rather stay there over like a really nice hotel because it's their own space. So I've wanted to do something for a while. In fact, probably 3 years ago, I bought some shipping containers they were remodeled. They were kind of like these container cabins, and I'd probably jumped the gun on it a little bit because I didn't have any property. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was just committed to it. I was like, I'm going to make this happen. And like I said, that was like at least 3 years ago. Long story short, I ended up selling them because I never like did anything with them. I didn't find the property, and I'm like, oh, I'll just design them my own way when I do find the right property. And so, found the right property and went through all the process over the last year or so to get it approved by the city. It's the first like tiny home resort in the city or the county up there. And yeah, it's been fun. So I've worked with a company called Zip Kits, where they actually build these kits. Have you guys heard of them?
Yeah.
Cool. Super cool. I just love like the modern design, the look. And so we actually came up with like some custom designs to fit what I was looking for, because I wanted something that was small, that was going to be inexpensive to build, right? I guess like backing up a little bit. So this is in Bryan Head, Utah. It's like a little ski town,
ski resort.
But I've had a condo there for, I actually just sold it I think a week or two ago, but I've had it for 5 or 6 years, and I've just used it as an Airbnb nightly rental. And it's pretty small. It was like 580 square feet, I think. But one of the things I did, there was one bedroom, and I added like some queen over queen bunk beds to give it more sleeping room. But I have like a really good history of how that's rented, over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I was like, how can I replicate this on this same level to produce the same results, but maybe get into it a little bit less expensive? And so that's where it's like, yeah, if I can build these tiny homes, and if I could get into them for less money, I could rent them out for the same. If the numbers looked good, then it's going to make money and all those things. So that helped me decide like, yeah, I want to do it. And I kind of replicate this. And so, yeah, I designed it. We came with our design, what would work. It's cool. We have some like built-in bunk beds in these smaller tiny homes. And then there's a bedroom in the back. You kind of have the privacy there. And then they also have a loft in them as well. It's like a legal sleeping size loft. Nice. And then you have a couch that can pull out as well if you need to. So we have 2 different designs. It's really cool. I don't know how much you want me to go into like how I actually got the property and what I did and stuff like that. This is my first
I'd love to
partner
hear
deal.
about where the zoning started, what you had to go through with the city to approve like a tiny home village essentially. I'd even love to hear, your cost per unit, what you think each one will pull in, because I'm assuming you're going to throw all of them up on Airbnb, and then you'll probably have your own booking website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
as deep as you want to go.
Cool. Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, obviously I love jamming on all this stuff. It's fun for me. I'm definitely passionate about it. So, the whole idea, right, is to create an experience and to create like a resort type feel. Like total, we have, I think 17 units. So it's a decent amount. 6 of them are one style, and then the other 11 are a different style, which is kind of cool. We have 2 different looks, and the main reason for that is the property that we bought was actually 4 lots altogether. So the way I got that, the zoning was it's what I wanted it to be. Like I did a lot of research beforehand. Like I knew I talked to the city on the phone multiple times. Like, hey, this is something I'm thinking about doing. What do you guys think? Is this something that you think you'd be for or against, or what does that look like? So I got a really good filler out there, and then I pulled up the map of the zoning on the county website. And I'm like, okay, like this is kind of what I'm looking for in these areas. If anything comes up for sale, like I want to check it out. Well, I was up there snowboarding. I love to snowboard, and I see this for sale by owner sign in front of this lot. It looks awesome. So I called the guy on it, and trying to remember exactly what happened, because this was like 2 years ago. And long story short, I didn't do anything with it. He didn't do anything with it. I think he actually listed it. It didn't sell. And then it was about a year later, he'd taken it off the market, and I saw his sign again. And I'm like, you know what? This would be a perfect spot to be able to do this on it. And so I ended up with him, because it was off market, put it under contract. 150 grand is what I got it for. And this was an all cash deal. So it was like, but he gave me a month to yeah, I need to do my due diligence to do these different things. And I could afford it just to pay cash for it. But like my whole strategy in investing, right, is little amount of my own money in as possible with the most amount of money out as possible. And so I'm like, it doesn't really make sense for me to go, deploy a ton of cash on this, not to mention whole project and everything. And so what I did is I found a partner, and this was probably like, I have a couple days left before it. And I gave him $5,000. I'm like, I don't want to lose five grand out of this, but found a partner. And I just was like, hey dude, here's the deal. Like if you want to put money into this, if you buy the lot, like I'll take care of like the project, I'll take care of the work, getting it there, all the stuff that I'd kind of already done on the back end of it. And we'll split everything 50-50. And, he was kind of hesitant at first, and then he was like, yeah, no, that sounds good. I kind of told him, these are my projected numbers. This is what it looks like. This is why I think it's going to rent for this. And he was, long story short, wired me the money that day. I sent it over. It ended up being like the day that I was going to go out of contract. And for me, it was big because it was the first time like I've done any partnering on anything, and it was really like this mixture of like sales skills and kind of what you were talking about earlier, right? Where you didn't have the money, but you say yes, and you figure it out later. And it's kind of that situation, right? And that's just like a principle for any deal. If you find a deal and it's a good enough deal because you practice running the numbers, you know how to run the numbers, like, you put under contract, you figure it out. You will figure it out.
If it's a deal, there's an option to do something there. That's what we tell people. Take the dang deal, dude. Just get it while you can. Figure something out. You could JV, you could wholesale. There's so many options. Just get the deal.
So many options. And like putting someone under contract, at the end of the day, like you're not out anything. You know, you have a due diligence period. You have like too many people are so scared to take like that first step. It's like you're not out anything, and they miss out on opportunities that way too.
You could lose your earnest money
just to pull the trigger.
But I would say, like, for me personally, when I started, most of my earnest money amounts were like $100.
Yeah, just go low.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even within your, if you have a due diligence period, you're going to get your earnest money back.
Yeah.
You have contingencies in place. And I remember I was reading a book, I think it was by Grant Cardone, but I can't remember which book it was, but he said something like he puts in his contract sometime like, hey, this deal's contingent upon like getting approval from my business partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're adding into our contract right now.
Leo's my cat or whatever.
Subject to approval by all partners. It's just us two, but I didn't approve it. Sorry, man.
Totally. Yeah. Just gives you a chance gives you an out a little bit. But so tied it up, like put a lot of legwork in it over the last year. I think it's going to do great, honestly. Kind of like the whole project would probably be, I don't know, $2 million to like between the land and developing it and all the units, probably each unit close to $100,000 a unit, give or take. And like I expect them to do on a low end to bring in $2,500 on a high end, close to $5,000 like per unit. So you start doing the math on that, and it gets crazy. So between my partner and I, you take out the bank loan, our mortgage on that, like if things go as they should and as like my condos showed and as like expect them to, we'll each cash flow $10,000 a month after expenses. So
that's wild.
That's pretty cool. Like, and this is a deal that, like I said, he paid for the land, which we were able to then take the land being paid off and leverage that to get a down payment on the loan. Right. We'll come up with a little bit more money on top of that, but not a ton.
Was that hard to find?
And then the coolest part about this is, like I said,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're okay.
I was just saying, was that hard?
No, it's been interesting because
I did it again.
Sorry.
That little bit of lag,
Yeah, it's all good. No, surprisingly, no, not really. Commercial lending is completely different than residential lending, and I've done since then a lot more with the commercial stuff, and it's crazy. It's kind of cool. Like I have loans that I've gotten on my LLCs that I own. Right, I've bought properties with my LLC, and it's not me personally. They don't run my personal credit. Like it's really cool. But a lot of it is just with the bank if they have an appetite for it and they like it and it looks good and you have a track record and you know, they'll look at you personally, like who's the one backing all this? Are they strong? What do their assets look like? What's other net worth? And then they'll loan a lot based on that. So surprisingly not too difficult. But yeah, so should be good.
Yeah, I'm excited.
What I was going to say is
be staying there because I love going to Bryan Head. That's like, I feel like that's like my home resort. So
That's
I love it. Yeah. What I was going to say is because there was 4 lots that we got, right? So one of the lots, and this was part of the deal. This is what's just so cool about real estate, because you can structure things the way you want to structure it. You build the way you want to build it. Like when I went and found this financing partner, I said, hey, like there's like full disclosure, there's 4 lots here. Like I want to keep one of them. And I want that. It's going to be mine. I'm going to put a cabin on it. It's going to be for me, right? That's not part of the deal, even though that was part of the purchase price. And what's crazy is like he's super happy already because the land next to us just sold for I think $430,000,
wow.
right? And it was about half the size of what we have.
Dang.
And so like he's like already like it's a no-brainer. I'm glad I invested, but for me it's cool because now I have this cabin lot that's completely paid off, free and clear, and now I can leverage that to build a cabin. So kind of cool, kind of fun.
With it being 4 lots, if at some point you and your partner decide to sell this property, are you able to section it off and sell, hey, this lot has 7 tiny homes, this one has 6, and this one has 4?
Yeah, which I'm glad you brought that up. So that's kind of like, it's part of the exit strategy, right, for us. So the way the lot sit, it's kind of cool. One of them's like on a lower section, and then one of them sits up another 25 feet higher. Wow. And so that's kind of how way we've designed it and built it. It fits within all of the setbacks for each lot. So it does give us the ability to be able to sell a section of it off. And we've actually toyed around with the idea of like almost naming them 2 different things. So we have 2 different, expense reports. And if we do go to sell it, we can sell one, completely pay off the other one or something like that. The other thing, which is really cool about it as well, is if we wanted to like condominialize them and make them like individual units and sell them off one by one, we can do that as well.
Oh, wait.
So
that seems really powerful.
Ton of options. Yeah. So like, I mean, I'm in each one $100,000. Like I was saying, I probably could sell them for, I don't know, 180, if I did that and sold them each off separately. So you look at that, that's a business model. But again, for me, it's about the passive income.
Yeah.
So. You want the income that's going to keep coming in again and again and again.
But it's great to have those multiple exit strategies, right? That I think that's one of the things that's so key. And what is so fun about real estate is every deal has more than one exit strategy. Like you got killer cash flow set up. You somehow finagled yourself a lot. That's freaking sweet, dude. That's awesome. Now you got yourself set up to where, hey, I can sell this, pay this off. I sell these individually. Like that's where a power in an individual deal really comes from, is having these multiple steps that you can get out of a project. That's one of the things we're looking at, is we're hitting duplexes pretty heavy, and they're in certain neighborhoods, and they're running them through the replat, setting up townhouses and selling each side individually. And it's literally like we had a deal that we're like, oh, if we do this as a duplex flip, we'll make like $90,000. Well, by turning them into townhouses, like it's crazy. People cannot find houses in Boise right now. So our profits can be like $280,000 between the 2, that if we just kept as a duplex would have made us like 90, still would have been a good deal. But we just almost tripled what we're going to make out of that one deal just by finding a creative exit strategy. So I think exit strategies are huge, and it's awesome to have a couple set up.
It is, man. I think it's like, I feel like I'm pretty conservative the way that I look at things. You guys are probably the same way, like aggressive when I buy, but like running the numbers, everything is conservative. And even down to like this cabin lot they're talking about. I just got back the first like preliminary drawings of all of it. I've been designing it the last couple of weeks, and the way I'm doing it, so because it still sits on the property where it is zone multifamily still. What I'm doing is, so I'll have like one section of the cabin, there's 3 like suites. Okay. But I have them so there's exterior entrances. They all have kitchenettes. They all have laundry hookups.
Oh, wow.
So they're open and connected. Like if I wanted to have all my family there, that all connects to the main cabin. But then it's also something that I'll rent out separately. Each individual one. It's 3 levels. They all have decks, balconies looking off, like kind of like the view. It's like the view lot, which is cool. But yeah, just an option, right? Instead of me sitting here with this, expensive cabin,
A
that
liability at
it's
that
great,
point,
it's fun. Yeah, exactly. Liability. How do I take that and turn it into an investment, really?
I love that, dude.
Yeah, that's smart.
That's definitely like my perspective is like, I just don't want to own anything that's a liability because I'm just still super frugal and cheap. Like I've always wanted to own an Airstream. I finally convinced Jeff to partner with me on it. We bought a vintage one off Craigslist.
He bought it a month early, but it's okay.
It's
We'll
fine.
forgive
Yeah,
him.
jumped the gun. That's all right.
He got super excited. He was like, I bought one. I was like, cool.
That's so cool.
We're like 4 months out from being ready to place it on a lot, but cool. We got one now, so that's good.
We got to rehab it still, though.
Yeah,
too.
it'll be fun.
But
It's
like
cool.
now I can own something that like I want to own, but I don't have to feel bad about it being something that just sucks up my cash instead of produces cash because we're going to throw it up on Airbnb and make an experience, have a little deck. I could stay in it when I want to stay in it. And if worst case scenario, if it fails and it doesn't work as Airbnb, I have a rehab trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, we're
That's
taking up a lot
awesome.
of your
Yeah.
time, Brody. There was one thing I did want to hit though on the little form we had because I'm a dad of 2 and I'm married, and one of the things you had said was like how do you manage the balance between work and family life? And you had said that you go all in on either one. Hit on that real quick, that mindset piece, because I think that's like as you dive into real estate or business in general, especially being like a family guy, like separating those two out while still being very successful in both is not an easy thing. And it seems like you kind of have some sort of formula or path that you use that has led to some success in your personal and business life. So share that with the listeners, and then we'll let you get out of here and onto your day and make some money.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. I think it's a good one to definitely end on because family is, I mean, that's why we do it.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I do it. At least that's the driving force behind it. Without that, it's like, well, what's the point? Right?
Yep.
So it is a balance. It is challenging. It's something I definitely don't feel like I have mastered by any means. I'm constantly trying to figure it out and trying to, especially now with my wife as her business has grown as well. You can see you can see probably her desk behind me, right?
Yeah.
We built like this offsite office at our house, and so it's like, it's so much. So we're balancing like, okay, like the kids are up and I got this call and you got this call and how we do this. And then, with all of it, you have a family and then you have these multiple businesses. You're trying to like figure all of it out. And so for me, there's a lot of different really, really good analogies out there. I think like one of my favorites is you picture somebody, you go to a circus or whatever that balances, a bunch of like plates, I'm talking about. They have the sticks that stand up and the plates are spinning on them, and they'll get a bunch of them going. They'll get one going, they'll tap it a bunch and it starts spinning. They'll get another one going. And then, the first one they started, it'll start losing speed. And so it's about to fall off. And so they'll go over there and spin that a bunch more, and then they'll add a few more on there. And so I think the biggest mistake that I made early on is I looked at a balance as equality, and I have to spend an equal amount of time in all of these things in order to create like this true balance. Well, that's just not, it's impossible. Yeah. It's never going to happen. It's not how you do things. It's just, you can try to do that and you get so frustrated doing it, And so at least for me, like with where I'm at, the biggest helping point has been like, whatever I have going on, like just go all in that moment at that time. And it's crazy. Like yesterday, for example, I was hanging out with my daughter and I had 10 minutes, that's it, and she was like, we have like this dog bed in the front corner of our room, and she was actually pouring water on it, pretending she was like swimming. And I'm like, that's disgusting. She's like, Dad, come swim with me. She pretended she was a mermaid, and I'm like, dude, I'm not touching that water on the dog's bed. Like, that's gross. You know? But like, just like going all in on that and playing like make believe with her for 10 minutes. And like, she was my best friend the rest of the day, like wanted to hang out with me, love me. And like, it was all because the 10 minutes that I had, it made all the difference to her. And that's what she went to bed that night thinking of and remembering, Awesome. And I think that it's quality over quantity, and it goes the same with business. When it's time to go, it's time to go. When you're at the gym, it's time to hit the gym. Like, it's time to hit the gym. It's time to work. It's time to work. But ultimately, like, family time and like a hard cut off, which my wife, holds me to it more than I do myself. Like, when work time's done, it's like I'll leave my phone sometimes in my truck. I'll leave it in the office, and now it's time to be a dad. I'm going to go all in on.
Yeah.
So just being very present in the exact moment that you're in and not letting things pour over and distract you and pull you apart to where it's
Yep.
like you're here with your kids, but not really because you're worried about the deal coming in or
Yep.
a phone call or whatever.
Yeah,
That's
I think
cool.
that mindset of going all in is huge because that's what we have this big rug in our living room, and like when I get home, I lay down for 10 minutes on the rug, and that's all I do. And my kids just dogpile me, bro. My kid is in the Transformers right now, and he's like, I'm Optimus Prime because he can't say Optimus. It's the cutest thing in the world. And like we just wrestle, we just play make believe, and like he legit wakes up in the morning and runs to my room and like talks to me about what we did the day before, and it was like a 5 to 10 minute thing, and like that made his whole day. So I think that's huge, man. It's cool
That's
to
so
see other
cool.
people who are successful in business be like, I'm still gonna be a successful dad, husband, father, all that type of stuff. So that's really cool, man. Thanks for sharing that with us. Appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely.
What's the
Thank
best
you,
way
guys.
for people to get a hold of you or get in touch with you to talk about your mastermind group?
Yeah, probably Instagram. You can go to the realestateinvestingplaybook.com. It's got a bunch of info as far as like mastermind course, as well as realestateinvestingschool.com as well. But yeah, my Instagram handle is Brody Fausett, or Flippin' Faucets is kind of where I
That's good.
do a lot of real
It
estate
is
stuff.
good.
I like that. My last name is Fawson, so I was gonna go with Flipping Fawson. But
Oh,
then
okay.
you
I
already
didn't
have
know that.
Flipping Faucet, so I was like, I can't copy that.
That's
one. It's
awesome.
just a little weird.
I don't know, dude. You flip a lot more houses than me. That's what's funny is I'm like, dude, flipping. I'm like, I'll renovate houses to keep them and rent them out.
Yeah,
That's
right.
more my style, you
Yeah.
know. So I'm like, maybe that doesn't fit quite as well as
Yeah, you still flipped them though.
Yeah,
Kept them.
I flipped them, kept them, right?
There you go.
So
Cool.
Well, we appreciate you, man. You dropped a lot of value on the podcast, and it was fun to just sit down and talk shop. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Chasing Freedom podcast with Noah and Jeff.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel in the show notes below. And if you ever want to get a hold of us, feel free to do it via our Instagrams. You can also follow us for our funny content on TikTok.